I'm Audrey Mitchell, 32, and the CEO of Tech Fusion Solutions. Yesterday, I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw my family gathered at my parents' house planning their New Year's Eve party without me. The same family that only started calling when my company went public. Staring out from my $7 million Times Square penthouse, watching the city prepare for the biggest night of the year, I made a decision. If they didn't want me at their party, I'd throw one they'd never forget. Before I dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, hit that like button, and subscribe to join me for more real-life drama that proves success is the sweetest revenge. Growing up as the middle child between James and Kimberly was like being invisible. My parents, Richard and Patricia Mitchell, had a clear hierarchy in our suburban Boston home. James was the firstborn son, the golden child who could do no wrong. Kimberly was the baby, the princess who needed protection, and me, I was just there. My father, a banking executive, pushed James toward finance from the time he could count. My mother, a former beauty pageant contestant, groomed Kimberly for social success. When I expressed interest in computers at age 12, my father called it a phase, and my mother worried it would make me unpopular. Family photos told the story clearly. James holding trophies with Dad's proud arm around him. Kimberly, in matching outfits with Mom, and me, slightly out of frame or with a forced smile. My achievements coding competition wins, science fair medals were acknowledged with distracted nods, and quickly redirected conversations about my siblings' accomplishments. At 16, I built my first app, a simple organizational tool that gained traction at my high school. When I showed my parents, my father glanced at it and said, "That's nice, honey, but maybe focus on something that could lead to a real career." That same night, they threw a party for James getting an internship at my father's bank, an internship my father had arranged with a phone call. By the time I left for MIT on a partial scholarship, which my parents complained about having to supplement despite paying full tuition for both siblings at less prestigious schools, I had accepted my place in the family. I stopped trying to impress them and started focusing on impressing myself. College was transformative. Away from my family's shadow, people saw me. Professors recognized my talent. Classmates respected my skills. I found my tribe in the tech community, and for the first time, I felt valued. I founded Tech Fusion Solutions my junior year with my roommate Lisa Chang. We started small, developing security software for small businesses. The first 2 years were brutal 18-hour days, instant ramen, and sleeping on office floors. When we needed initial funding, I didn't even bother asking my family. Instead, I worked 3 part-time jobs and pitched to every investor who would listen. During those struggling years, my parents' interest in my life dropped to nearly zero. They forgot my birthday twice. Christmas invitations came with notes like, "We understand if you're too busy to join us," which was family code for, "Don't come." When I did visit, conversations centered around James's promotion or Kimberly's engagement to a surgeon. Then came our breakthrough. Our security software stopped a major cyber attack on a client, making national news. Suddenly, investors were calling us. 6 months later, we secured $8 million in funding. 2 years after that, we went public with a valuation of $200 million. The morning after our IPO, my phone rang. It was my mother, gushing about how proud they'd always been of our little tech genius. Invitations to family events became frequent and insistent. My father started mentioning my successful daughter to his colleagues. Relatives who had never remembered my name suddenly needed small loans or investment advice. I wasn't vindictive, just cautious. I attended family gatherings, bought generous gifts, helped my brother with a down payment on his house when he overextended himself. I even funded my niece's private school tuition when my sister complained about the cost. Part of me still yearned for the family connection I'd missed growing up, so I kept trying. Last year, I purchased my penthouse overlooking Times Square, a symbol of success, yes, but also a place where I could entertain, create connections, build the family feeling I'd always wanted. I invited my parents to the housewarming. They came for 30 minutes, complained about the traffic, and left early for a dinner at a friend's house they'd forgotten about. I kept trying, sent thoughtful gifts, made time in my schedule for their events, listened to their problems. This past Thanksgiving, I flew in a private chef to cook dinner at their house, after my mother complained about being tired. The meal was perfect, but the conversation still revolved around James and Kimberly. When I mentioned our company's expansion to Europe, my mother changed the subject to Kimberly's plans to remodel her kitchen. December arrived and I asked about the family's New Year's Eve plans. My mother was vague. Nothing special, probably just a quiet night. I offered to host at my penthouse, mentioning the perfect view of the ball drop. She declined, saying, "Maybe next year, dear." I thought nothing of it until yesterday, when I saw my sister's Instagram story. My parents, brother, sister, their spouses, cousins, aunts, uncles, and family friends, all gathered around my parents' dining room table with champagne glasses, planning what looked like an elaborate New Year's Eve celebration. A celebration I knew nothing about. I froze mid-scroll, staring at my phone screen. There they were, my entire family huddled around my parents' dining table, champagne flutes raised in a toast. My mother was holding up a seating chart. My father was showing off what looked like a catering menu. My brother James had his arm around his new fiancée, Taylor. My sister Kimberly was taking the photo, her perfectly manicured nails visible at the edge of the frame. The caption read, "New Year's Eve planning in full swing. Can't wait for the Mitchell family's biggest celebration yet. Family tradition, New Year's Eve." Family tradition? This was the first I'd heard of it. I scrolled through the comments, my chest tightening with each one. "So excited to ring in the new year with the whole family," wrote my cousin Rachel. "Just booked our flights. See you all on the 31st, added Aunt Susan. "Got my outfit ready. This year's party will be even better than last year's," commented my cousin's wife. Last year's? They'd done this before? I texted my cousin Rachel immediately. "Your New Year's Eve comment on Kim's post looks fun. When did this become a tradition?" Her response came quickly. "Oh, for the last 3 years. Didn't you know? Everyone will be there. You're coming, right?" 3 years. 3 years of family New Year's celebrations I'd never been invited to. I called my mother, trying to keep my voice steady. She answered on the 4th ring. "Hello, dear, how are you?" "I'm fine, Mom. I just saw Kim's Instagram post about the New Year's Eve party." A pause. "Oh, that. It's just a small gathering." "Small? It looks like the entire extended family will be there." "Well, yes, a few people are coming over. Nothing fancy." "Why wasn't I invited?" I asked directly. Another pause, longer this time. "We didn't think you'd be interested, Audrey. You're so busy with your company, and New York is a long way to travel for just one evening." "Mom, I fly further than Boston for breakfast meetings. I've offered to host holiday gatherings at my place multiple times." "Yes, well." She cleared her throat. "The thing is, Taylor's family is coming this year and they're very traditional, conservative. They're not comfortable with, well, with what exactly?" "Your lifestyle, dear. The flashy penthouse, the media attention. James is trying to impress Taylor's father. He might get a partnership at his law firm. We thought it might be easier if things were kept simple this year." My throat tightened. "So I'm being excluded because I'm successful?" "Don't be dramatic, Audrey. No one's excluding you. We're just being mindful of the dynamics. Maybe you could join us for Easter instead?" After hanging up, I called my father. His excuse was even flimsier. "We weren't sure about your schedule," followed by, "We didn't want to pressure you," and finally, "It wasn't my decision." I texted James next. "Why wasn't I invited to New Year's?" His response came hours later. "Taylor's family is kind of judgmental. Dad thought it would be easier if you sat this one out. Nothing personal." Nothing personal. Just my family deciding I didn't fit their image once again. I spent that night alone in my penthouse, flipping through old family photos on my laptop. There I was at 8 years old, standing slightly apart at James's baseball victory celebration. At 14, sitting at the end of the table during Kimberly's Sweet 16 party. At 22, missing entirely from my parents' anniversary dinner because the invitation had gotten lost in the mail. The pattern was clear. I had never belonged. Not really. My success had only made it more obvious. Around midnight, I walked to my floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the crews setting up in Times Square below. Workers were testing lights, building stages, preparing for the moment when the world would watch this iconic spot welcome a new year. A new year, a fresh start. That's when the idea hit me. My family didn't want me at their gathering? Fine. I'd host my own event, one they couldn't ignore, one that would show them exactly what they were missing. Looking out at Times Square, with the perfect view of where the ball would drop in just a few days, I made my decision. They'd excluded me for the last time. By 7 a.m., I was already 3 cups of coffee in and deep into planning mode. The CEO in me had taken over, treating this party like a product launch. I needed it to be flawless, unforgettable. The kind of event people would talk about for years. First, I called Rebecca Santos, the top event planner in Manhattan who had orchestrated galas for celebrities and tech billionaires alike. When her assistant said she was booked through February, I doubled her usual fee and promised a prominent mention in any press coverage. She agreed to meet me for lunch. You want to plan a New Year's Eve party at your penthouse in Times Square? In 4 days? Rebecca asked, eyebrows raised as she sipped her sparkling water at 11 Madison Park. Exactly, I replied, sliding over a digital tablet with my initial concepts. Rebecca scrolled through my ideas, her professional composure slipping momentarily. This is ambitious even with months of planning. I built a $200 million company from my dorm room. Ambitious is my comfort zone, I told her with a smile that meant business. By dessert, Rebecca was making calls, pulling in favors, and texting her team. We settled on a theme: new beginnings. A night above Times Square. The concept would showcase luxury, without being gaudy, tasteful opulence, that made a statement without trying too hard. Back at my office, I compiled my guest list while Rebecca worked her magic. First tier. Industry connections. My parents had always been impressed by the venture capitalists who had funded us, tech journalists who had covered our rise, celebrities who used our products. Second tier. My parents' friends, neighbors, and business associates, people who would definitely mention the invitation to them. Third tier. Every family member except my parents, brother, and sister. I texted my cousin Rachel first, hosting an exclusive New Year's Eve party at my Times Square penthouse. Full view of the ball drop. Would love to have you and Mark join. Formal invitation coming today. Her response was immediate. Are you kidding? Yes. Wait, aren't you going to your parents' thing? Wasn't invited, I replied simply. I could almost feel her shock through the phone. What? How is that possible? Everyone's going. Everyone except me, apparently. But don't worry, my party will be much better. No plus ones beyond spouses, though. Strict guest list. Next, I called my Aunt Susan, my father's sister who had always been kinder to me than most. Audrey, how are you, sweetheart? I'm great, Aunt Susan. Listen, I'm hosting a New Year's Eve party at my penthouse in Times Square. Amazing view of the ball drop, top shelf everything. I'd love for you and Uncle Dave to come. Oh, her voice faltered. We already RSVP'd to your parents' gathering. I understand completely, I said smoothly. I just thought I'd offer since my place has the perfect view. I've booked a celebrity performer too, but I can't say who yet. A celebrity? And the ball drop view? I could hear her interest peaking. Let me talk to Dave and get back to you. One by one, I contacted aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends. By mid-afternoon, my phone was buzzing constantly with responses, most following a similar pattern. Initial hesitation followed by growing interest and eventual acceptance. For entertainment, I called in a favor from a client, a music producer who owed me after our security system had prevented a leak of his top artist's upcoming album. One call secured a performance by a chart-topping singer who happened to be in town for the official Times Square celebration. I hired an award-winning chef who had recently opened Manhattan's most impossible-to-get-into restaurant. The mixologist came from the speakeasy bar that had just earned a Michelin star. The photographer had shot covers for Vogue. Then came the coup de grace. I arranged for a live streaming setup that would broadcast parts of the party on social media. My parents weren't big on social media, but they checked it enough to see what the family was doing. They'd see what they were missing. For my outfit, I scheduled an emergency appointment with a top stylist who pulled pieces from designers who normally dressed A-list actresses. We settled on a black Valentino gown that was sophisticated but statement-making, paired with subtle but unmistakably real diamonds. By evening, Rebecca had confirmed the impossible. Everything was coming together. The caterer, entertainment, decor, security, and staff were all booked. Digital invitations went out with an RSVP deadline of 24 hours, creating urgency and exclusivity. The invitations featured a stunning night view from my penthouse with the Times Square ball visible, and the text, "Audrey Mitchell invites you to welcome the new year from Manhattan's most exclusive vantage point. December 31st. 8 p.m. until the first sunrise of the new year. Asterisk. Strictly no additional guests beyond named invitees. Asterisk. That last line was crucial, no chance of my parents attending as someone else's +1. As responses began flooding in, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and something else I couldn't quite identify. Validation? Perhaps. Vindication? Possibly. But there was something else too, something I wasn't ready to examine too closely. Instead, I focused on the plan, reviewing details with Rebecca until nearly midnight. When we finally wrapped up, she looked at me with professional admiration. In 15 years of planning events, I've never seen someone pull something like this together so quickly, she said. It's going to be spectacular. It has to be, I replied, looking out at the twinkling city lights. It's not just a party, it's a statement. What that statement was exactly, I wasn't entirely sure yet, but I knew it needed to be heard. My phone rang at 7:13 the next morning. James. I let it go to voicemail, took a sip of my coffee, and waited. 3 minutes later it rang again. Still James. I silenced it and continued reviewing the catering menu Rebecca had sent over. The third call came at 7:22. I answered with a deliberately casual tone. Hey, what's up? I'm in the middle of something. What the hell, Audrey? James's voice was tight with anger. You're throwing a competing New Year's Eve party? Competing with what? I asked innocently. I wasn't aware of any other plans that included me. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Half the family just called Mom and Dad to cancel on their party. Aunt Susan, Uncle Dave, the cousins from Chicago, they're all going to your thing now. My thing is a New Year's Eve celebration at my home, to which I've invited people I care about. People who didn't exclude me from their holiday plans. God, you're so dramatic. It wasn't personal. Inviting every single family member except me seems pretty personal, James. He lowered his voice. Look, Taylor's family is really important to my future. Her dad could make me partner. They're conservative people who find your whole tech millionaire lifestyle intimidating. So I'm being punished for my success? That tracks with this family. Nobody's punishing you. We're just what? Continuing the family tradition of making me feel like I don't belong? Tell me, was I excluded from last year's family tradition, New Year's party too? And the year before that? His silence was answer enough. That's what I thought, I said. Enjoy your party, James. I'll be enjoying mine. I hung up and turned my phone to silent, but I could see it lighting up immediately with texts. Most were from family members excited about my invitation. From Cousin Rachel, just booked our flights. Mark is dying to see your place. Is it true you have a private elevator? From Uncle Dave, Susan and I are in. Never seen the ball drop in person. This is a bucket list item. From my second cousin Megan, who I hadn't seen in years. Oh my God, thank you for the invite. My friends are going to die when they hear about this. Amid the excitement were messages from my immediate family. From Mom, Audrey, please call me. We need to talk about this childish behavior. From Dad, your mother is upset. This family drama is unnecessary. From Kimberly, way to ruin everything again. Taylor's family is super important to James, and you're being selfish as usual. I ignored them all and focused on finalizing details with Rebecca. By mid-morning, the RSVPs were at 78% confirmed, an unheard-of response rate for such short notice. People were rearranging plans, booking last-minute flights, and finding babysitters just to attend. Around noon, my mother called. Against my better judgment, I answered. Audrey Elizabeth Mitchell, she began, using my full name as she always did when angry. What do you think you're doing? Hosting a New Year's Eve party, Mother. Something you're familiar with, apparently. You're deliberately trying to sabotage our family gathering. Interesting perspective from someone who deliberately excluded me from said family gathering. We did not exclude you, she insisted. We just thought that I wouldn't find out, that I wouldn't care, that I'm used to being the forgotten middle child, so why should holidays be any different? You're being ridiculous. We were protecting James's relationship. Taylor's family is very important. More important than your daughter. Got it. Not exactly breaking news. Her tone shifted to the guilt approach I knew so well. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me, Mom? Forgotten my college graduation? Dismissed my career until I was successful enough to brag about? Excluded me from family events? We paid part of your college tuition, which you remind me of constantly despite the fact that I've repaid you 3 times over. I bought Kimberly a car last year and helped James with his down payment. When's the last time you thanked me for anything? Silence. That's what I thought, I continued. Look, Mom, throw your party. I'll throw mine. Everyone can decide where they want to be. You're tearing this family apart, she said quietly. No, I'm just finally refusing to be the one who gets torn away. After hanging up, I felt shaky but resolute. Years of suppressed feelings were surfacing, but I pushed them down and focused on the task at hand. The party, the statement, the line in the sand. Late that afternoon, my assistant forwarded an email that made me laugh out loud. It was from my father to several family friends who had already RSVP'd to my event, suggesting that Audrey's gathering has been canceled due to building restrictions and reiterating their invitation to the real family celebration. So that was how they wanted to play it. I picked up my phone and called Rebecca. We need to send a follow-up to all confirmed guests, I told her. Let them know that despite any rumors they may hear, the event is absolutely proceeding as planned. Add that we've just confirmed our surprise musical guest and a special midnight champagne toast that will make this New Year's Eve unforgettable. On it, she replied. Also, I should mention I've had inquiries from several high-profile guests asking if they can attend after hearing about it from others on your list, including 2 celebrities and a senator. Add them, I decided. The more witnesses to this statement, the better. By evening, my parents' sabotage attempt had backfired spectacularly. Not only had all originally confirmed guests reconfirmed, but the guest list had grown by another 23 VIPs who suddenly found my party the must-attend event of the season. As I sat alone in my penthouse that night, watching the city lights and the continued preparations in Times Square below, my phone rang again. It was James, but this time his tone was different. Audrey, this has gotten out of hand, he said, sounding tired. Mom and Dad are freaking out. They're worried you're trying to embarrass them. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I'm just refusing to be invisible anymore. He was quiet for a moment. You know, they've always been threatened by you. What are you talking about? Your success. Your independence. The fact that you made it without Dad's connections or Mom's social circle. They don't know how to handle it. So they exclude me? How does that make sense? It makes perfect sense if you're insecure, he said. Look, I'm not defending them. What they did was wrong, but this party war isn't going to fix anything. It's not about fixing things, James. It's about finally being seen. After we hung up, I stood at my window for a long time, watching the city that had embraced me when my own family wouldn't. For the first time, I wondered if this party was really about revenge or if it was about something deeper, something I'd been seeking my entire life. The next morning, my phone lit up with a text from Aunt Susan. Audrey, your father just called to say your building management canceled your party due to capacity issues. Is that true? We've already changed our plans. Before I could even respond, similar messages started coming in from other guests. My father had apparently spent his evening calling everyone on my guest list, telling them various versions of the same lie that my party had been canceled due to building restrictions, permit problems, or security concerns. White-hot anger surged through me. This wasn't just exclusion anymore. This was active sabotage. I immediately drafted a message to all guests. Despite misinformation being circulated, my New Year's Eve celebration is proceeding as planned. The building management has confirmed there are no issues whatsoever. In fact, we've just added additional luxury elements that I can't wait to share with you. Please contact me directly with any questions. Next, I called the building manager and explained the situation. He was appropriately appalled and offered to send a confirmation email to any guests who inquired. Then, I called Rebecca and explained what was happening. I've already received 6 calls about this, she said. I've been reassuring everyone. But why would your father do this? That's what I intend to find out, I replied. I rarely went to my parents' home unannounced. In fact, I'd made it a personal rule to always call ahead, always make sure I was actually wanted before showing up. But rules were being broken all around, so I instructed my driver to take me straight to their Beacon Hill home in Boston. The 3-hour car ride gave me time to think, to rehearse what I would say, and then to discard those rehearsals as my anger evolved into something colder and more focused. This wasn't just about a New Year's Eve party anymore. This was about a lifetime of being pushed to the margins of my own family. My parents' surprised faces when they opened the door would have been satisfying if I hadn't been so angry. "Audrey, what are you doing here?" my mother asked, her hand fluttering to her throat. "We need to talk," I said, walking past them into the house where I grew up. The place still smelled the same, my mother's preferred potpourri, the lingering scent of furniture polish. The foyer table still held the same silver-framed family photos, carefully arranged to show the family my parents wanted to project to the world. "I understand you've been calling my guests," I said, turning to face my father once we reached the living room. He had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable but quickly rallied. "I was simply looking out for the family." By lying about my party being cancelled? By trying to preserve our family tradition, he countered. "A tradition I was never part of." "That's not true," my mother interjected. "You were invited last year, but you said you were too busy with work." "I was never invited last year," I said flatly. "Or the year before." "Of course you were," she insisted. "I distinctly remember telling you about it." "Show me the invitation, Mom. Show me the text, the email, the call log. Show me anything that proves you actually invited me." Her eyes slid away from mine. "Well, I thought I had. Things get hectic around the holidays." "Too hectic to include your daughter, 3 years in a row?" My father stepped in. "Audrey, you've always been difficult about family gatherings. Always working, always last to arrive, first to leave. Can you blame us for assuming you wouldn't be interested?" "Yes, actually I can, because you never bothered to ask. And now you're retaliating by stealing our guests," he said, his voice hardening. "I invited family members to my home for a holiday, just like you did. The difference is, I didn't exclude anyone." "Except us," my mother pointed out. "After you excluded me first. And then actively tried to sabotage my event by spreading lies." We stared at each other, 3 people connected by blood but separated by years of unspoken resentments and misunderstandings. "Why have you always pushed me away?" I finally asked, the question that had burned inside me for decades finally escaping. "Pushed you away?" My mother looked genuinely confused. "Audrey, you're the one who left. Who decided Silicon Valley and New York were more important than family. I left because there was no place for me here. James was the son you bragged about, Kimberly was the daughter you pampered, and I was... what? The odd one out? The one whose achievements were always met with, 'That's nice, dear,' while you threw parties for James getting a C+ in algebra?" "That's not fair," my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it? When my company went public, do you know what you said to me, Dad? You said, 'I guess all that computer stuff paid off.' All that computer stuff, my life's work. The company valued at $200 million, reduced to computer stuff." My mother sank into an armchair. "We've always been proud of you, Audrey." "No. You've been proud of what you could say about me to your friends once I became successful. There's a difference." A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner, the one that had counted out the seconds of so many uncomfortable family dinners. "I've never told anyone this," my father said eventually, his voice unusually subdued, "but I was passed over for partner at the firm last year." This unexpected change of subject caught me off guard. "What?" "They went with someone younger, said they needed fresh perspectives and digital native thinking." He practically spat the terms. "After 30 years of loyalty." I waited, not sure where this was going. "Then you sent that Christmas card, the one with you on the cover of Business Insider. 30 under 30 tech visionaries. Your mother showed it to everyone." "I thought you'd be proud," I said quietly. "I was. And I was jealous," he admitted, not meeting my eyes. "My daughter accomplished in 10 years what I couldn't in 30. Started from nothing, didn't need my help or connections. And every time someone congratulated me on your success, all I could think was, I had nothing to do with it." The revelation stunned me into silence. My father jealous of me? The concept was so foreign it took me several moments to process. Is that why you asked me for a loan for James's down payment instead of helping him yourself? I asked slowly. Because you were passed over for partner? He nodded, shame evident in the gesture. And why you never mentioned my success unless other people brought it up first? Why you've been excluding me from family events? It's not that simple, my mother interjected. We're proud of you, Audrey. We are. But you're so self-sufficient. You don't seem to need us. James and Kimberly still need our help, our advice. With you, what do we have to offer? You're smarter, wealthier, more successful than we ever were. I needed parents, I said, my voice breaking slightly. I still do, not for money or career advice, just for belonging, for being seen. Another silence fell, heavier than before. We can't stop you from having your party, my father finally said. But I'm asking you, as your father, to consider what you're doing to this family. To your brother's relationship with Taylor's family. I looked at him for a long moment. I'll consider it, I said finally. If you'll consider what you've been doing to me for years. I left without further discussion, the weight of revelations and unresolved tensions following me like a shadow. In the car back to New York, I stared out at the passing scenery, wondering if understanding my parents' insecurities changed anything. It explained their behavior, yes, but did it excuse it? By the time I returned to my penthouse, it was late evening. Rebecca had sent an update. Every single guest had reconfirmed their attendance after the confusion. Several had mentioned my father's calls, expressing confusion over the conflicting information. She had smoothed everything over professionally, but the damage to my family relationships was already done. I stood at my window, looking down at Times Square. 2 days until New Year's Eve, 2 days until my statement party. The event was still proceeding exactly as planned, but something had shifted inside me. Was this really about being seen, as I'd told my father? Or was it about making sure they could never ignore me again? And most importantly, would either outcome actually heal the wound that had been festering for as long as I could remember? December 30th arrived with a flurry of activity. My penthouse transformed hour by hour as Rebecca's team executed our vision. Crystal chandeliers were installed over the main entertaining space. A temporary bar of gleaming black marble was constructed along one wall. Florists arranged white orchids and silver-sprayed branches in tall glass vases. Technicians set up subtle lighting that would make everyone look their best while highlighting the spectacular views. The caterer needs to finalize the champagne selection, Rebecca said, consulting her tablet as we did a walkthrough. We have the Dom Perignon for the midnight toast, but he's suggesting a Ruinart Rosé for earlier in the evening. I nodded absently, my mind elsewhere. Audrey, is that all right? Rebecca prompted. Sorry, yes. The Ruinart is fine. She studied me for a moment. Everything okay? You seem distracted. Just thinking about all the details? I lied. The truth was more complicated. My conversation with my parents kept replaying in my mind. Their jealousy and insecurity didn't excuse their behavior, but it had humanized them in a way that made my grand revenge party feel different. As the day progressed, my phone continued to buzz with messages from excited guests and increasingly desperate communications from my family. James sent a long text explaining how Taylor's father had been impressed by our parents' home and connections, and how this New Year's Eve gathering was crucial to solidifying his standing in the family. Kimberly called twice, leaving voicemails that alternated between guilt-tripping and insulting. Around noon, Lisa Chang, my business partner and closest friend since college, arrived. She had flown in from San Francisco specifically for my party and to provide moral support. Holy shit, Audrey, she said, whistling as she took in the transformation of my penthouse. You weren't kidding about going all out. I gave her a quick tour, pointing out the features that would make the evening special, the custom cocktail menu, the renowned chef preparing individual tasting courses, the live streaming setup that would capture the ball drop from our perfect vantage point. It's going to be incredible, Lisa agreed when we finished the tour. But are you sure this is what you want? We were sitting in my kitchen nook, away from the busy staff. I cradled a cup of tea between my hands, needing its warmth. What do you mean? I've known you for 12 years, Audrey, long enough to recognize when you're channeling hurt into other things. Like success, I challenged with a half smile. Like proving yourself to people who may never see you the way you deserve to be seen. I sighed. Lisa had been there through it all, the late nights coding in our dorm room, the rejections from early investors, the moments of triumph and despair as we built our company. She had also witnessed every disappointment with my family, the graduation they left early, the achievements they downplayed, the gatherings where I was an afterthought. They were jealous, I said quietly. My father admitted it yesterday. They've been threatened by my success. Lisa nodded slowly. That tracks, but does knowing that change what you're trying to accomplish with tomorrow night? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me still wants to show them exactly what they're missing, to make a statement they can't ignore, but another part wishes you could just have a normal family that celebrates each other's successes? She finished for me. Is that so much to ask? No, but you can't control how they react, Audrey. You can only control what you do. Our conversation was interrupted by a call from the caterer. There was a crisis with the seafood delivery. The fresh oysters I had specifically requested were unavailable due to weather conditions affecting shipping. For the next hour, I was fully in CEO mode, working with the chef to identify acceptable alternatives and rearrange the menu accordingly. By the time the issue was resolved, Lisa had gone to her hotel to rest before dinner, and I was alone again with my thoughts. I wandered through my partially transformed home, watching the efficient dance of Rebecca's team as they prepared for tomorrow night. In less than 36 hours, these rooms would be filled with people, family members, business associates, celebrities, and influencers all witnessing my success, my ability to create something spectacular on a moment's notice. But would any of it matter if the people I most wanted to impress weren't there to see it? Late that afternoon, I received an unexpected call from my Aunt Helen, my mother's older sister who lived in Florida and rarely attended family functions. I hadn't invited her, assuming she wouldn't make the trip. Audrey, it's your Aunt Helen. Aunt Helen, hi. This is a surprise. I heard about this situation with your parents and the competing New Year's parties. Her direct approach was refreshing after days of passive-aggressive family communications. News travels fast, I remarked. Family drama always does. She paused. I wanted to tell you something about your mother that might help you understand. I'm listening. When your mother was growing up, she was always in my shadow. I was the pretty one, the social one, the one who got the attention. Your mother was smart, smarter than me, honestly, but in those days, especially in our family, that wasn't what was valued for girls. I stayed silent, listening. She spent her whole life trying to fit a mold that never quite worked for her. Then she had you, brilliant, independent you, who didn't care about fitting into anyone's mold. You were everything she never allowed herself to be. So she resented me for it? I asked, a familiar hurt surfacing. No, honey, she was terrified for you. Terrified you'd be rejected the way she felt rejected for her intelligence, then terrified you'd outgrow the family, which, in some ways, you have. I never wanted to outgrow them. I just wanted to be accepted for who I am. I know, but people who don't accept themselves have a hard time accepting others, she sighed. I'm not defending what they did. Excluding you was wrong. But I thought you should know where it comes from. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint the city in shades of gold and pink. Tomorrow night, this view would be shared with 100 guests. The perfect backdrop for my statement. But what exactly was I trying to say? As evening settled over Manhattan, my phone rang again. It was a number I didn't recognize with a Boston area code. Hello? Audrey Mitchell? This is Howard Pierce, Taylor's father. My brother's future father-in-law, the reason I'd supposedly been excluded from the family gathering. I straightened instinctively, though he couldn't see me. Mr. Pierce, what can I do for you? I understand there's some family disagreement about New Year's Eve plans. You could say that. James is very concerned about how this reflects on him. He seems to think I'll judge him negatively because of this situation. And will you? He chuckled, surprising me. Miss Mitchell, Audrey, I'm a corporate attorney who's worked with tech companies for 30 years. Do you think I'm intimidated by successful women? My parents seem to think so. Your parents are from a different generation. I read that profile of you in Forbes last spring. Impressive work you're doing with cybersecurity. This conversation was not going how I'd expected. Thank you, I said cautiously. Look, I'm calling because Taylor is upset. which makes James upset, which is making this holiday stressful for everyone. I don't care where we celebrate New Year's Eve. My wife and I would actually prefer Times Square to the suburbs, if you want the truth. Are you asking to come to my party instead? I'm suggesting that perhaps this family feud is based on assumptions that aren't accurate. Just something to consider. After we hung up, I stood at my window for a long time, watching the city lights blink on as darkness fell. The preparations for my spectacular revenge party continued around me, but inside, the certainty that had driven me for the past 3 days was beginning to falter. Was I really making a statement worth making? Or was I just perpetuating a cycle of hurt and misunderstanding that had defined my family for generations? I had 24 hours to decide. New Year's Eve morning dawned clear and cold, the winter sun casting long shadows across my bedroom floor. For a moment, I lay still, listening to the distant sounds of Times Square preparation filtering up even to my high perch. Tonight, 1 million people would gather in those streets below, while a select 100 would watch from my glass-walled eyrie. The thought didn't bring the satisfaction I'd expected. I checked my phone, 3 missed calls from my mother, a text from James, "Please reconsider what you're doing to this family," and dozens of excited messages from confirmed guests. I set it aside without responding and got up to make coffee. Rebecca arrived at 9, already in full event manager mode. The florist is on the way up, the caterers arrive at noon, and the sound technicians need another hour with the system, she reported, not even pausing to say good morning. The weather forecast is perfect cold but clear, which means excellent visibility for the ball drop. We've confirmed the secret performer will arrive through the private entrance at 8:30, and security has the complete guest list for check-in. I nodded, trying to match her enthusiasm. Sounds like everything's on track. She paused, studying my face. Second thoughts? Not about the party, I said, which was mostly true, just wondering if it will accomplish what I wanted. Which was? I wasn't sure I could articulate it anymore. Revenge? Recognition? Reconciliation? The lines had blurred. A memorable New Year's Eve, I said finally. The morning passed in a whirlwind of last-minute preparations. The florist transformed my already elegant space with arrangements that managed to be both dramatic and tasteful white orchids, silver-painted branches, and subtle touches of deep blue that pulled the night sky into the interior. The caterers set up their staging area in my kitchen, the head chef giving me tastes of various dishes as they prepared. The bartenders practiced making the custom cocktails named after New York landmarks. By late afternoon, my home was unrecognizable, transformed into a glamorous event space that could have graced the pages of Architectural Digest. The lighting had been adjusted to highlight the spectacular views while flattering the guests. Music played softly through the state-of-the-art sound system. The smell of gourmet food preparation filled the air. At 6, Lisa arrived to help me get ready. "This is insane," she said, taking in the transformation. "In a good way, mostly." I smiled weakly as we headed to my bedroom, where a professional stylist waited to do my hair and makeup. "Still not sure if I'm doing the right thing? Are you?" I considered the question as the stylist worked, transforming me as thoroughly as my home had been transformed. "I guess I'll find out tonight." By 7:30, I was ready, dressed in the black Valentino gown, diamonds at my ears and throat, hair and makeup flawless. I looked like someone who belonged in this setting, someone confident and successful, someone who couldn't be overlooked or forgotten. "You look amazing," Lisa said. "How do you feel?" "Like I'm playing a part," I admitted. "But I guess that's appropriate for tonight." The first guests arrived promptly at 8. Aunt Susan and Uncle Dave, wide-eyed as they took in the penthouse and the view. "Audrey, this is spectacular," Aunt Susan gushed, hugging me carefully to avoid disturbing my perfect appearance. "I can't believe we get to watch the ball drop from here." Uncle Dave was already at the window, pointing out landmarks. "Look, Susan, you can see the Empire State Building from here." More guests arrived in quick succession. Cousins I hadn't seen in years, family friends who had known me since childhood, business associates impressed by the last-minute invitation to what was clearly becoming the event of the night. Rebecca's team moved smoothly through the growing crowd, offering champagne and hors d'oeuvres, directing people to the various viewing spots and entertainment areas. By 9, the party was in full swing. The secret performer, a chart-topping singer with 3 Grammy nominations, had done a private set that had everyone buzzing. The food was exceptional, the drinks flowing freely, and the atmosphere electric with the anticipation that always fills New York on this particular night. I moved through my party like a ghost, making appropriate small talk, accepting compliments on the venue and the entertainment, but feeling strangely disconnected from it all. This was what I had wanted my family members and their friends experiencing my success, seeing what they had excluded me from sharing with them. Yet the victory felt hollow. Around 10:30, I stepped onto my private balcony for a moment alone, needing a break from the noise and attention. The city spread out below me, alive with lights and possibility. In Times Square, I could see the crowds growing denser as midnight approached. Quite a view. I turned to find my brother James standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "What are you doing here?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "How did you get in?" "Lisa let me up. She said you might need some family tonight, even if you wouldn't admit it." He joined me at the railing. "This is some party, Audrey. You've certainly made your point." "Which is?" "That you don't need us. That you've outgrown the family. That you can do all of this," he gestured to the glamorous scene visible through the windows behind us, "without any of our support or approval." I was silent for a moment, letting his words sink in. That wasn't the point I was trying to make. No? Then what was it? That I wanted to be included. That despite everything I've accomplished, everything I've built, I still wanted a place at the family table. My voice caught slightly. Even after all these years of being pushed to the margins, I still wanted to belong. James leaned against the railing, looking out at the city rather than at me. "You know, growing up, I was always jealous of you." "What? Why would you possibly be jealous of me? You were the golden child. I was the one with expectations. You were the one with freedom." He shrugged. "You got to forge your own path. I had to follow Dad's." "That's not how it felt from my perspective. I know that now, but back then," he sighed. "We never really talked, did we? Any of us. We just assumed we knew what the others were thinking, feeling, and usually assumed the worst," I added. "Yeah." He was quiet for a moment. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry you weren't invited to our New Year's thing. I should have stood up for you." "Thanks." I hesitated, then asked the question that had been bothering me. "Is it true what Howard Pierce told me? That he wasn't actually bothered by my flashy lifestyle?" James looked startled. "You talked to Howard?" "He called me yesterday." "Huh." James ran a hand through his hair. "No, it wasn't true. That was Mom and Dad's assumption. They thought Taylor's family would be put off by your success because they're put off by it. The confirmation hurt, even though I'd suspected as much." "So Howard and his family are at our parents' party now?" James laughed, a short, sharp sound. "No, they're on their way here, actually. Once they found out where the real party was, nothing could keep them away. Taylor's trying to convince Mom and Dad to come too." "What?" The idea of my parents at my revenge party was so incongruous I couldn't immediately process it. Taylor's father is a huge tech enthusiast, apparently. He's been following your company for years. When he found out you were Taylor's future sister-in-law, he was thrilled. Wouldn't stop asking questions about you at Thanksgiving. But Mom assumed. Like always. James glanced through the windows at the party in full swing. She and Dad should be here by 11, if Taylor convinces them, which she usually does. I gripped the railing, suddenly feeling unsteady. I don't know if I'm ready to see them. Not here, not tonight. "Well, you've got about," he checked his watch, 20 minutes to decide, because they just texted that they're in an Uber crossing the bridge into Manhattan. As if on cue, Lisa appeared at the balcony door. "Audrey, you should come inside. Someone just posted about your party on Instagram and it's blowing up. The doorman says there are people trying to talk their way in who aren't on the list." I took a deep breath of the cold night air, looking once more at the city below, at all the people coming together to celebrate endings and beginnings. Then I turned to face the party I had created out of hurt and pride, the statement I had designed to be unmistakable. "Tell Rebecca to add 4 names to the entry list," I told Lisa. My parents, Taylor, and Taylor's father, Howard Pierce. As I stepped back into the light and noise of the party, I wasn't sure if I was surrendering or finding a different kind of victory. But for the first time that evening, the smile I wore felt genuine. The party was at its peak when Rebecca appeared at my elbow, her professional composure slightly dented. "They're here," she said simply. I didn't need to ask who. I could feel their presence even before I turned to look toward the entrance, where my parents stood with Taylor and her father. They looked simultaneously out of place and exactly where they belonged. My mother in her conservative but elegant navy dress, my father in his customary charcoal suit. Taylor was wide-eyed, taking in the celebrities and the spectacular view. Howard Pierce, surprisingly, looked completely at ease, already chatting animatedly with a tech journalist I'd invited. For a moment, our eyes met across the crowded room, my mother's and mine. I saw the recognition, the surprise, and something else I couldn't quite name. Pride? Regret? Some combination of both? I excused myself from the conversation I'd been having with a venture capitalist and his wife, and made my way through the crowd. James materialized at my side, offering silent support. "You came," I said when I reached them, not sure what else to say. "Taylor was very persuasive," my father replied stiffly. "And Howard wouldn't stop talking about your company once he found out you were James's sister," Taylor added with a nervous smile. "He's been following your work for years, apparently." Howard turned from his conversation. "Audrey, magnificent place you have here. I was just telling Bill about your new encryption protocol, brilliant application of quantum-resistant algorithms." My mother looked between us, clearly surprised by his enthusiasm. "You know about Audrey's work?" "Of course. Her company is revolutionizing data security. I've had my firm's IT department implement their solutions across all our systems." He looked at me with genuine admiration. "Your daughter is changing the digital landscape, Patricia. You must be incredibly proud." An awkward silence followed, my mother clearly at a loss for words. "Let me show you around," I said finally, partly to break the tension, and partly because I couldn't bear to hear whatever response my mother might manufacture. The view of Times Square from the main living area is spectacular. I led them through the party, introducing them to guests along the way. Howard immediately hit it off with several of my tech connections, while Taylor was thrilled to spot one of her favorite actors by the bar. My parents followed silently, taking in the opulence, the important people, the evident success of the event. When we reached the main viewing area, my father let out a low whistle despite himself. "That's quite a perspective," he admitted, looking down at the massive crowd in Times Square. "Best view in the city," I confirmed. "Would you like a drink?" "The bar is serving custom cocktails named after New York landmarks." "I'll have whatever you recommend," my father said, a small concession. As James took Taylor and Howard to get drinks, I found myself alone with my parents for the first time. The three of us stood awkwardly, the spectacular view providing a convenient distraction. "This is quite an impressive gathering," my mother finally said. "You put it together very quickly." "I'm good at executing when I need to," I replied, a skill I developed early. She flinched slightly at the implied criticism. "Audrey, Miss Mitchell?" A server appeared with a message from Rebecca. "There's a situation with the live stream setup that needs your attention." "Excuse me," I said to my parents, almost grateful for the interruption. "I need to handle this. Please, enjoy the party." For the next hour, I managed to avoid any further private conversations with my parents by staying busy with host duties, checking on the kitchen, ensuring the live stream was properly configured for the midnight ball drop, introducing guests to each other. Whenever I glimpsed them, they seemed to be having a reasonable time. My father was deep in conversation with a former senator I'd invited, while my mother was being given a tour of the art collection by Lisa, who had apparently appointed herself ambassador. At 11:45, Rebecca gathered everyone into the main viewing area for the approaching midnight celebration. Staff distributed glasses of Dom Perignon, the live stream cameras were positioned, and the energy in the room built as the final minutes of the year ticked away. I found myself near my parents again, the crowd pushing us together as everyone jostled for the best view. "Audrey, can we speak privately for a moment?" my mother asked, her voice barely audible over the party noise. I hesitated, then nodded toward a small side balcony that had been closed to guests. Through there, we slipped away from the crowd, the glass door muffling the sound of the party when it closed behind us. The night air was cold but still, the city stretched out below us in a glittering tapestry of lights. "This party is remarkable," my mother said after a moment. You've accomplished something extraordinary on incredibly short notice. Thank you, I said, waiting for the qualifier that inevitably followed her rare compliments. Instead, she said, I owe you an apology. The words were so unexpected that for a moment I thought I'd misheard. What? I've been unfair to you, for a long time. She gripped the balcony railing, staring out at the city rather than looking at me. When you were growing up, I didn't know what to do with you. You were so bright, so independent, so uninterested in the things I valued. That doesn't justify excluding me. No, it doesn't, she sighed. The truth is, you intimidated me. Still do, if I'm being honest. You built this life, this career, this empire, really, all on your own, without any of our help or guidance. Not by choice, I pointed out. You weren't exactly offering support. Because we didn't know how to support you. You were operating in a world we didn't understand. James followed your father's path, we knew how to help with that. Kimberly wanted the social connections I could provide. But you, she gestured to the penthouse, the party, the view. You created all this yourself. I was quiet, letting her words sink in. When you became successful, she continued, it just highlighted how little we'd contributed. And yes, I was jealous too, of your freedom, your confidence. The life you built that's so different from the one I chose. I still wanted to be part of the family, I said softly. Success doesn't change that. I know that now. She finally turned to look at me. I should have known it all along. My father appeared at the balcony door, a concerned expression on his face. Everything all right out here? It's almost midnight. Join us, Richard, my mother said. I was just apologizing to Audrey for how we've treated her. He looked surprised but stepped onto the balcony, closing the door behind him. Apologizing? Yes, she said firmly. For excluding her, for not celebrating her success, for letting our own insecurities affect our relationship with our daughter. My father was silent for a long moment, his expression uncomfortable. Finally, he said, she's right. We owe you an apology, Audrey. I let my pride get in the way of being a good father. Through the glass, I could see the party in full swing, everyone gathering around the windows and the large screens showing the Times Square ball poised to begin its descent. 10 minutes to midnight. 10 minutes to a new year. I don't expect everything to be fixed in one night, I said carefully. We have a lot of history to work through. We do, my mother agreed, but we'd like the chance to try, if you're willing. From inside, I could hear the crowd beginning to count down. 60 seconds to midnight. I didn't throw this party just to prove something, I said. I did it because I wanted to belong, to be seen, to matter to the people who should have cared most. You've always mattered, my father said quietly. We just didn't know how to show it. 30 seconds came the shout from inside. I looked at my parents, really looked at them, maybe for the first time in years. They were older than I remembered, more vulnerable. Still flawed. Still the people who had hurt me repeatedly over the years. But also, possibly, people capable of change. 10, 9, 8. We should go in, I said. It's almost midnight. 7, 6, 5. My mother touched my arm hesitantly. Whatever you decide, Audrey, know that we are proud of you. We should have told you that a long time ago. 4, 3, 2, 1. As the crowd erupted in cheers and the familiar strains of Auld Lang Syne began playing, I made a decision. Not forgiveness. Exactly, that would take time and evidence of real change, but an openness to possibility. Happy New Year, I said, opening the balcony door to rejoin the celebration, my parents following behind me. As we stepped back into the light and noise, James found us immediately, champagne glasses in hand. There you are, Happy New Year. We accepted the glasses, and I found myself in the middle of an awkward but genuine family toast as confetti fell from the ceiling. The ball completed its descent in Times Square, and the crowd around us celebrated the beginning of something new. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't even entirely comfortable, but it was, perhaps, a start. The first sunrise of the new year painted my bedroom ceiling in shades of pink and gold. I lay awake, watching the light shift and change, my mind replaying scenes from the night before. The party had been an unequivocal success by any measurable standard. Social media was filled with posts from attendees calling it the event of the season and the most exclusive New Year's celebration in the city. The live stream of the ball drop from my penthouse had been viewed by thousands. The secret performer's set was trending on Twitter. Rebecca had already received inquiries about planning similar events for other high-profile clients. By those metrics, I had achieved exactly what I'd set out to do: create a statement party that would show my family exactly what they had excluded me from. But the most meaningful moments of the night had nothing to do with the expensive champagne or celebrity guests. They were the quiet conversations that happened after most guests had departed, my family and I, sitting in my now quiet living room as dawn approached, talking more openly than we had in years. James and Taylor had been the first to leave around 2 a.m., with Howard following shortly after, still excitedly discussing potential business collaborations with several of my tech connections. My parents had lingered, seemingly reluctant to end the night and break the fragile new understanding between us. "Would you like some coffee?" I had offered when it became clear they weren't ready to leave. The caterers left some breakfast pastries too. My mother had accepted gratefully, kicking off her heels as we moved to the kitchen. My father had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, small gestures that spoke volumes about their willingness to stay, to talk, to try. Over coffee and pastries, as the city slept below us, we had begun the difficult work of honest communication. There had been tears, mine and, surprisingly, my mother's. There had been admissions that hurt to hear and hurt more to say. There had been moments when old defenses threatened to rise again, when it seemed easier to retreat to familiar patterns of distance and resentment. But we had pushed through, the exhaustion of the long night perhaps making it easier to drop pretenses and speak truth. "I always thought you didn't need me," my mother had confessed around 4 a.m., cradling her third cup of coffee. "You were so self-sufficient, even as a child, you figured everything out on your own." "I needed you to see me," I had replied, "to accept me as I was, not as you wanted me to be." "I see you now," she had said softly. "I'm sorry it took so long." Now, watching the morning light transform my room, I wasn't sure what came next. One night of honest conversation couldn't erase decades of hurt and misunderstanding. Trust would need to be rebuilt slowly, intentionally, over time. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from Lisa. "Breakfast? I want all the after-party details." I smiled and typed back, "Meet me at Sarabeth's in an hour." The brunch crowd at Sarabeth's was subdued, most of Manhattan still sleeping off New Year's Eve celebrations. Lisa was already at a table when I arrived, looking remarkably fresh despite the late night. "How are you even functioning right now?" I asked, sliding into the seat across from her. "3 Advil and sheer determination," she replied with a grin. "Plus, I left earlier than you did." Speaking of which, she leaned forward eagerly. "What happened after I left?" "I saw your parents were still there." "They stayed until 5 in the morning," I said, unable to keep the surprise from my voice even hours later. "Seriously? Doing what?" "Talking. Really talking, maybe for the first time ever." I gave her the highlights as we ordered, and waited for our food, the balcony conversation with my mother, the awkward but sincere apologies, the long hours of difficult but necessary dialogue that followed. "Wow," Lisa said when I finished. "That's not where I thought this revenge party was going to end up." "Me neither," I admitted. "I'm still processing it all." "Do you believe them? That they'll really change how they treat you?" I considered the question carefully as our food arrived. "I believe they want to. Whether they can actually do it, I guess time will tell." "And are you okay with that? The uncertainty?" "I think I have to be." I took a sip of my coffee. The alternative is continuing this cycle of hurt and resentment, and I'm tired of it. It's exhausting, carrying all that around. Lisa nodded, understanding in her eyes. She'd witnessed my family dynamics for years, had seen the impact of their behavior on me despite my attempts to pretend it didn't matter. "So what now?" she asked. "Now, I set boundaries. I stay open to the possibility of a better relationship, but I protect myself too. I don't expect perfection, but I do expect effort." We finished our meal discussing lighter topics: company plans for the new year, Lisa's recent vacation to Costa Rica, mutual friends from college. As we were waiting for the check, my phone buzzed with an incoming text. It was from my mother. "Your father and I are still in the city until tomorrow. Would you have time for lunch today? Just the 3 of us." I showed the text to Lisa, who raised her eyebrows. "The real test begins," she commented. "What are you going to say?" I thought for a moment, then typed, I'd like that. La Grenouille at 1? The response came quickly. Perfect. See you then? A month later, I hosted a small dinner party at my penthouse. No celebrities, no elaborate decor, no secret performers, just good food, good wine, and comfortable conversation with the people who mattered most to me. Lisa was there, of course, along with a few close friends from the tech world. My parents drove in from Boston. James and Taylor came, with Howard joining them. Even Kimberly attended, making an effort that surprised me. As we sat around my dining table, the same family that had excluded me just a month earlier, I noticed subtle but significant changes. My mother asked thoughtful questions about my latest project. My father proudly introduced me to Howard as our daughter, the CEO, without a hint of the resentment that had colored similar introductions in the past. Kimberly, perhaps following their lead, actually listened when I spoke instead of waiting for her turn to talk about herself. It wasn't perfect. Old habits emerged occasionally. My mother still sometimes compared me unfavorably to Kimberly. My father still occasionally dismissed tech as less serious than finance. But they caught themselves, corrected course, made visible efforts to do better. And I was changing too. I was learning to speak up when hurt instead of retreating into work, learning to give them the chance to get it right instead of assuming they would get it wrong. Learning to see them as complex, flawed humans rather than the all-powerful figures of my childhood who had the ability to make or break my sense of worth. After dinner, as everyone moved to the living room for coffee and dessert, I found myself on the balcony again, looking out at the city I had made my home. The spot where, a month earlier, my mother had offered the first genuine apology I could remember receiving from her. James joined me, handing me a cup of coffee. "Penny for your thoughts?" I smiled, just reflecting on how much can change in a month. "Mom asked me if you might come to Easter this year," he said. "She's already planning the menu." "I'll be there," I promised, "though I might offer to host Mother's Day here." He nodded approvingly. Baby steps. Inside, I could see my family through the glass, my mother laughing at something, Howard said, my father showing Taylor a photo on his phone, Kimberly helping Lisa serve dessert. An ordinary family moment that would have seemed impossible on New Year's Eve. The road ahead would not be without its bumps and detours. Years of patterns couldn't be undone in a month. There would be disappointments, regressions, moments when it would be easier to give up than to keep trying. But standing there with my brother, watching our family take tentative steps towards something healthier, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't expected to find when I'd planned my revenge party. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about making others see what they're missing. It's about allowing yourself to be seen fully, honestly, vulnerably, and giving others the chance to really see you too. Not through the distorted lens of their own expectations or insecurities, but as you truly are. It's about having the courage to break cycles instead of perpetuating them, to choose healing over hurt, connection over isolation, growth over stagnation. As we rejoined the others for dessert, I caught my mother's eye across the room. She smiled a real smile that reached her eyes, and I smiled back, stepping into the new beginning we were all trying to create. I'd thrown a New Year's Eve party to make a statement. I hadn't expected the statement to be, "It's never too late to start again." Thank you all for listening to my story. Have you ever had a moment of unexpected reconciliation with someone in your family? I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with anyone who might need to hear that family healing is possible, even after years of hurt. I'm so grateful for this community and the way we can support each other through life's complicated relationships. Wishing you all strength and courage in your own journeys toward healing.